Hello, my name is Erica Lindsay, and I'm a recent graduate of North Carolina Central University School of Law. I took the Illinois State Bar exam in July 2013, and I'm here to help with the Multistate Performance Test. I would like to share with you my experiences and give you helpful hints on how to pass the exam. In preparation for taking the MPT, I strongly suggest you read instructions for taking the test. These are the printed instructions on the back of each MPT booklet, which will be given to you the day of the exam. If you read it ahead of time, it will allow you to become familiar with the testing process, so on the day of the exam, it's more of a review versus new information to you. I have provided a copy of the Illinois MPT with the instructions which will apply to all state-administered MPT exams. The MPT test examinees on how to write a legal document. That legal document could be a persuasive memo, an objective memo, an opinion letter, letters to opposing counsel, or any variation thereof. The most popular are persuasive and objective memos. In a persuasive memo, you would create a document that will persuade the reader to adopt your position. You will present the facts to where you should win the case. An objective memo will consider both sides of the question. You'll be asked to evaluate or to discuss or to analyze the case presented. There's also a hybrid between the two, which will ask you to write a persuasive memo and recognize the weaknesses in your argument. That was the memo I had. I had to write a persuasive memo, but to recognize the weaknesses in my case, which I had to clearly illustrate within the document. The MPT is a total of 90 minutes. I'm going to recommend that you divide the 90-minute test into two parts. Part 1 will be 45 minutes and Part 2 will be 45 minutes. In the first part, I would like for you to read the instructions, create your memo template, review all materials, and create your research grid. That's not going to be a lot of time for you to accomplish all those goals, but that's why the MPT is designed to manage your time and to test how well you could produce a quality product. For Part 1, read the instructions. Now, there's two sets of instructions. You have the instructions of the actual test itself. That is, from my previous slide, instructions to the test. Read that over before you take the exam. So the day of the exam, you're just going to review it. Make sure it's the same as what you previously read. The second set of instructions are the ones you now need to focus on, which are within the task memo. And I'll talk about that in a minute. After you read the instructions thoroughly, create your memo template, review all the materials, both the fact file as well as the library, and then create your research grid. That is Part 1. Part 2, you're going to write your memo with your grid information, which would be 40 minutes. I have this broken down in a future slide to give you a better idea of time management. After the 40 minutes, you have 5 minutes to review and edit. This is how you should practice your timing for you to pass the exam successfully. This is a grid blank. This is what I created before the testing began. You'll find when you sit for the bar, there's going to be a lot of dead time. During this dead time, they're going to be passing out booklets, passing out scratch paper, pencils, passing out all the materials. What I did once I received my scratch paper and a pencil, I drew this grid blank out. Now, along the vertical axis, you see the numbers 1, 2, 3. That's going to represent the task that I have to do found within the task memo. So I just numbered them. You might have 2 tasks, you may have 3 tasks, you may have 4 tasks. But I just drew the numbers on the vertical axis so I'll know to put the task that I need to complete along the vertical axis. On the horizontal axis, I drew blank columns. This is where the information from the actual file will go. So you have a library, you have a fact file. I will place the headers on the grid once I start the exam. So this just allows me to save time from drawing the grid during the 90 minutes if I just draw a blank grid during the time before the exam starts. Now the exam has started. We're in the first part of the 45 minutes. During the first part of the exam, you need to refresh yourself on the general instructions. These are instructions that you have previously read before the exam, before you did anything. These are the general instructions. You just want to verify that these are the same instructions that you've already read and there's nothing new. Look through the table of contents on the file to see what's actually being presented to you. Note what type of task you are to complete, who are the represented parties, and who you are to represent. Do that within 5 minutes. Next thing, read the task memo. If you finish part 1 early, spend more time on the task memo because this is what the examiners are testing you on, how well you follow directions. Read it thoroughly, get an understanding. Now, you're going to have anxiety, you're going to be nervous. It's just a time constraint because you're taking the bar. But you need to understand what's being asked. So you have to understand what the task memo is telling you to do. Next, you're going to create a template. I'll talk about that in a minute. The template is what you're actually going to be presenting for the test itself. Next, you're going to be reading the task memo again, just to verify what you actually thought you read. Next, this is where you're going to read the statutes. I strongly suggest you read the statutes if they give you statutes in the file. The reason why, it tells you what law and rules you're going to be applying to the case, and usually it's very short. Usually all your rules and laws within the statute is going to be on one page. Read that first. You don't understand why you're reading it, but you understand what the law is. Only read the statutes. Do not read the supporting cases just yet. Second thing you're going to read are the file facts. Now this is going to be whether it's a transcript, whether it's going to be letters, whether it's going to be various information presented to you, but these are the facts of the case, and this is what you need to read second. Thirdly, you need to read the supporting cases. Now that's going to bring you back to the library. So the library has the statutes and the supporting cases. Read the statutes, read the file facts, then go back to supporting cases. The reason why I say that is the supporting cases usually cite the statutes. So you're not going to really find any new law there normally. You're either going to find the law in the supporting cases or in both the supporting cases and the statutes. So my suggestion is read the statutes first, read the file facts, and read the supporting cases. That way you understand the law, you understand the facts, and then you understand the cases, how you're going to be able to apply them. All that you're going to be putting in your grid within the first 45 minutes. Now, these are estimated times. You could establish your times based on your personal preferences once you practice. Okay, this is just an initial guideline, but if you find yourself able to create a template in 2 minutes, perfect. That gives you more time to use it elsewhere. If you find yourself able to eliminate part 1 as far as reducing that down to 3 minutes, that's fine. But you do need to do all of these different steps, but you have to do it within a 45-minute period. Now, this is the template. The template is really straightforward, especially with a persuasive or an objective memo. You only have to lay out the key areas of where you're going to write. So as you notice, it's going to be from some type of law firm because that's who you're going to be representing. So you write the actual law firm, the name, the street address at the very top, as you see here with Jane Doe. And you're going to be replying to Jane Doe based off of the task memo. So whoever you're replying to, that's the name that goes to the two. And from is the bar applicant. You will never use personal information here. You will never put your name. You'll never put your bar ID number. Only thing you're going to do is put bar applicant. You're going to have your regarding based on the case information presented and the date of the exam. As you notice, I have memorandum, introduction, discussion, and conclusion all in caps. Type it out the exact same way I see it here. This is going to help you stay organized and put the information within the actual memo correctly. And it will allow you not to forget something. It could be very easy for you to forget your conclusion or forget your introduction once you get involved in the process. So I strongly suggest lay it out, no more than 4 minutes, jot down the information. Do not use any of your personal information on the exam itself. Once you've completed the template for the memo, now you're ready to complete your grid. Along the vertical axis, you're going to list all the tasks that are indicated in your task memo. In my task memo, I had to address 3 issues. The issue 1 was head injury in the house. The second issue was arm injury in the garden. The third issue was leg injury in parking lot. Along the horizontal axis, you want to list all the information from the file. Your file is going to contain 2 parts. It's going to have a library and it's going to have a file. The library is going to contain your statute and the cases. The file is going to contain various information specific to your case. I suggest read the statutes first, then read the file, then go back to the library and read the cases. In doing that, you're exposing yourself to the law, you're reading the facts, and then you're seeing the law again found in the cases. Now, when I first started with the statute, I identified the first rule for the head. So I indicated number 1, head, which was a rule, so I put R there, and I indicated the page where it was found, which was page 8. The second rule I found was directed towards the arm. So I wrote number 2, arm, rule, the R, and page 8. I did this for every element that I needed to identify in both the statutes, all the facts, which was a transcript and client letter, and then all the cases. For every task identified throughout the facts, label the fact or rule with the task, a number, and a page number on the grid, and write the same task with the corresponding number on the actual page within the file. For example, on the grid, number 1 head rule is found on page 8. That was on the previous slide. Also write on the physical page 8, number 1 head, where you find the related fact or rule. This will help you keep track where the facts and rules are located within the case file. This is what your grid should look like once you've completed it. Your task should be along the vertical axis. Your horizontal axis should contain all the different sections of the file. When you complete the grid itself, all the relevant information regarding the head, the rules, and the facts will be found on row 1. All the relevant rules and facts related to the arm are going to be found on row 2. All relevant facts related to the leg are going to be found on row 3. This is going to help you when you develop your CRAC paragraphs in the discussion section. So that top row is only going to have head information. It will not have arm or leg information in it. So you could focus solely on that first row when you're writing that specific paragraph. For the second paragraph, you're going to focus your attention to the second row. For the third paragraph, you're going to focus your attention on the third row. So all the information, the facts, the rules, everything is going to be spelled out for you, and you'll know what page to go to find the information. Now we have arrived at part 2. Now this is what you're going to use the next 45 minutes on. My first suggestion, read the task memo again. Now the first 45 minutes you've done a lot of work. You have created your template, you have read through the file, you have created a grid, you have labeled both the grid and the file folder with the information of where to locate it. Now I had did this whole process, and when it came to part 2, I was ready to write my memo but write it for the wrong party. I had gotten myself confused. And so I read the task memo again, and it got me back on track. So I was actually writing for the defense because that's what the instructions stated. But if I would have just gun-ho, ran through, and wrote for the plaintiff side, I would have been in trouble. So it's just a real good time to just do a double check to make sure you're on the right page, because it's so easy to get thrown off track. You have so much information being given to you at one time. Read it again, make sure you're going to be writing on the right instructions given. Fill in the template. I'll show you that in a minute, because you're going to be focusing most of your time on the discussion. You're going to have a conclusion, and you're going to have your introduction. 2 minutes each on those, 35 minutes on the discussion. Then you're going to edit the document. Read it over, last 5 minutes. That's when you're breathing, relaxing, and it's done. I know reading the task memo 3 times throughout this period does sound excessive, but it's well worth it, just to make sure you're on the right track. Now we're back to the memo template you've already created. I want you to bring your focus to discussion. Here you're going to be writing 1 paragraph for each task in the memo. Usually it's 3. It could be 2. It could be 2 with a subtopic that you're going to have to address. Each task memo is different, so you're going to have to understand what you need to be writing on and create the memo accordingly. Each paragraph should be a CRAC, a conclusion, rule, analysis, conclusion. Now remember, when we did the grid, we identified all the rules that you're going to apply to your file. So those rules that you have found, you're going to place in your CRAC here. Then your analysis is rule plus facts. That's why you labeled your facts accordingly. So now you know what rule to go with which fact. And then your conclusion. Your rules are going to be either given to you in the statutes or in the case law provided through the actual cases. In my exam, I didn't have statutes, so my rules were all in the cases, but there are times where they'll give you statutes as well. Create a topic heading for each section, incorporating both the law and the facts. I'll show you an example of that in a minute. But for each topic heading, you want to bring the reader to what you're actually defining. So I'll show you how to do that. Then we're going to talk about the introduction and the conclusion in a minute. The discussion. This is where you're going to spend the majority of your time for part 2, which is going to be the 35-minute block. Here you're going to have 1 paragraph to address each task. Do not combine paragraphs. Do not make it one big paragraph. Have separate paragraphs for each task defined in your memo, your task memo. So here, I suggest for each paragraph you have a CRAC. And before you create your CRAC, you should have a topic sentence. Now your topic sentence should be part of the law and part of the facts. Now your task memo is actually going to give you part of your topic sentence. So for example, by the defendant charging the plaintiff in the house with a knife and the plaintiff hitting her head on the door while trying to escape, plaintiff has established a claim of right against the defendant. Use the verbiage of the issue in your topic sentence. Okay? So now they understand, okay, we're going to be talking about head, we're going to be talking about in the house, and the claim of right. Then you go ahead and do your CRAC. My defendant should win because, or however way you want to create your conclusion. Insert your rule. We know where we're going to find our rule from our grid. Combine with the rule with the fact. We know where we're going to find our facts according to our grid. Do your conclusion. You know, your conclusion should pretty much mirror. Some people say CRAC, some people say IRAC, some people say different other things. But the key is you need to have it consistent. Now, I labeled these areas as far as topic, sentence, conclusion, rule, analysis, conclusion, but don't label these within your paragraph. Just let it flow. Your topic sentence is X. Conclusion, why that person should win. Insert your rule, combine the rule with facts, conclusion, period. Once you finish the discussion section for each task identified in the memo, then you're going to write your conclusion first. Now, your conclusion could be a little bit more in detail than your introduction, but they should be very similar. So your introduction and your conclusion could be very similar, but your conclusion should have more content. Your intro could be an abbreviated version of the conclusion. Once you've done that, proofread the last 5 minutes, and you're done. This is going to take practice. Practice is going to be key here because you have to get comfortable with the process, laying out the information, and then pulling it together into a complete memo. This is the reference book I used for this presentation, and actually this is the book I studied from for the actual exam itself. Excellent book, great book. It got me on track. I spent very little time studying for the MPT once I was able to review it. And I went through majority of the keys here, but I suggest you buy the book. It's going to be around $70 on Amazon. But the key is it has practice MPTs in it, and it goes through a process. Now, I did some changes to her process because I wanted to do a much simpler numbering system. That's why I said I just number sequentially 1 through however many facts I have, as well as writing the template in the first 45 minutes. Those were the changes I did to make it easier for me to complete the exam, but the book itself is awesome. It tells you everything you need to know, and I strongly recommend you getting it. I hope this was helpful. I hope it gets you on the right track. It should be able to get you a good start on how to complete the exam successfully, but again, practice is really going to be key in you being successful on the exam. Good luck. Thank you very much.